Hello again, and welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is Jesse here, and we are still in the suburban area of Power Wash Simulator USA. And yes, we are just continuing our trek through 2021. The first video we looked at just sort of some of the projects and stuff that I've been doing, and channel and Twitch and all that kind of stuff. Second video we kind of looked at technology and stuff like that. This time we are going to look at events and trends of 2021. So events, there's a lot of them, and you know, one trend that kind of ties into events is I like how more events, like, I know people get Zoom fatigue. I totally get that, especially like we've had work meetings that have been Zoom, and you know, I don't mind them, but like, yeah, I would not want to do an eight. You know, we've had all day staff meetings in the past in person, and I don't want to do an 8 hour Zoom meeting sitting in the chair for 8 hours and just I would just immediately go take a nap after that, basically. Um, But one thing I do like is that because they've had to, a lot of events have gone virtual. And even as they start to come back in person, excuse me, stupid hiccups. Um, Even as they come back in person, they can kind of better be able to do a hybrid type of thing. So I'm hoping with things like the Game Accessibility Conference and other stuff that has to have been done virtually the past 2 years, I'm hoping that even when they go back to being in person, you know, not everyone can travel for whatever reason. So I'm hoping that they will be able to continue offering virtual attendance for those who are unable to attend in person. So that's what I'm really hoping happens. But I've done a lot of like virtual webinars, virtual trainings, a lot of things that maybe companies or organizations may have charged for are being offered for free for people a lot more these days, so that can be helpful. You know, I've attended things on assistive technology or accessibility, disability, whatever. But then I've, you know, tried to attend a couple of gaming things here and there. I've tried to attend, um, you know, just any number of different things. Um, we had the Game Accessibility Conference Europe version this year. That was streamed, and I know I could have just watched it on the, um, you know, the archives, but you know, when Riley was up here, we joined and we watched it. We had to get up at like 3 a.m. Our time because that's when it started. But again, there is something to be said for seeing it live. You know, feeling like you're part of the experience, but especially these last couple times where they've had the Discord and everything up and running. It's been really fun just to be able to be in chat and talk to people while the sessions are going on. People will supply other links or information or just general kind of banter. It's been really fun. It's been really good. So both the Game Accessibility Conference Europe version and the US version that took place in, what was it, October? Hell, I can't even remember. I want to say it was October, though. And both of those were, like I said, extremely good. So I'm hoping that when they go back to being in person, if I'm not able to attend in person every year or something, that I can still attend virtually, that they'll still have a Discord open. That would be fantastic. So I highly encourage Tara and Mr. Ian Hamilton. I hope you guys will be able to continue that trend. And I thank you. I and many others thank you for just doing such a great job with these conferences, and just the last like 4 years that it's been a thing. What, 4 or 5? No, 5 years, because I was there in person the third year. So 5 years. I'm just like, it used to be a 1 day thing. Now we can't contain it, and it has to be a 2 day conference because there's so much information, and we can have one twice a year. That's awesome. Just goes to show how much accessibility is starting to become a thing in the games industry. So I'm very, very thankful for that. Very glad to see that happening. Um, we had that. We had E3 was kind of this virtual thing again this year. And they combined that with the summer of gaming. Now I did appreciate that it wasn't quite as chaotic as last year. Like last year there was like the summer of gaming, and then they had the IGN thingy, and then there was, there was events that were uh from like late May, early June to like September. And I think they did a little bit better this year on just trying to, maybe have 3 to 5 events instead of like 12. I mean, there were still some things, but I think it was a little bit better done this year. So I definitely appreciate that. And okay, there's a speck of dirt somewhere. Oh, I wonder if it's down here. That's usually where it gets. No. Okay, well, we'll just figure it out. But yeah, I mean, even though virtual, the consoles had just come out last year, so we started getting some news about some games. But honestly, like, there were definitely some solid titles, but there wasn't anything that really super jumped out. Like, there was still a lot of pre-rendered trailers and those types of things, which I kind of like. I get when you're first unveiling and you want to show something. Sure, do a cinematic trailer, but they're, like I said in other videos, they're games. They're not movies. They're games, and so I want to see gameplay. I want to know sort of what in the heck this game is supposed to be. Um, and again, everybody working from home, everything kind of got thrown out of whack last year, so we're still playing catch up in a lot of ways. And so a lot of the things that maybe might have come out this year have got delayed. I mean, there were tons of announcements earlier this year that, oh, this is being delayed till 2022. And that's fine, because I want to have better games. I want to have games that come out at launch that work. Um, I don't want to have developers have to crunch and kill themselves just to get a game out. So I'm fine with that. Yeah, am I disappointed that I maybe don't get the game when I originally wanted it? Yeah, sure, a little bit. But in the long run, it's much more worth it for the delay. So, I mean, E3 was fun. Um, like I said, we'll get into the specific games later in a future video. But I mean, there were some good games that they talked about and that had come out, and with the summer of gaming and E3 and all that good stuff. Let's see, what other events? Realms Deep. Realms Deep. This is a show that I have really become a fan of. This is, I think, what, their second year? I don't know if it's in their third. I think this is their second year. This is a show that is largely devoted, not exclusively, but largely devoted to like retro games, and especially retro first-person shooters. So if you like Doom, you like Quake, you like a lot of these 90s style shooters, Duke Nukem, Thief, Deus Ex, you like any of these types of things, Realms Deep is absolutely going to be your thing, because they announced just tons of shooters that have either come out in early access, that are coming out, or that have come, they're in all kinds of stages right now. where some of them have come out, but a lot of them are either in early access or haven't even come out yet. There's been a couple of demos here and there, but again, when we get into some of my games that I played later this year, or later in the next couple of videos, I will definitely be talking about some of these that showed up at Realms Deep. But I love the fact, like, we have, it's been a great time for first person shooters, which I love the genre. I mean, we have E1M1, which is this kind of retro or first person shooter digital magazine and print magazine, complete with classic style demo discs. We have this FPS documentary, which I backed on Kickstarter, and that is going to be a thing that I'm very much looking forward to. I mean, it's basically the people who have done a lot of these other documentaries where they've covered like horror movies and just, I think it's that same group, but like whatever it is, like you can tell they care a lot about it and they're doing it right. I'm very, very much looking forward to having that as just something really cool to watch. But then we have, like I said, Realms Deep. We have Night Dive Studios. We have New Blood Interactive. Like, these guys are doing God's work, man. Like, they're bringing back old retro shooters. They're bringing back retro games in general, like older PC titles. They're bringing back, and on top of that, they're making new content. So, like, oh, we're not gonna, oh, you like games like Duke Nukem or Shadow Warrior, do you? Oh, well, we're gonna make something like Ion Fury. We're gonna make these retro games that feel like they could have come out in the '90s, except they're better geared toward, you can run them on modern PCs, and like you can do more than you could have back then. So there's been a lot of those types of games which have been wonderful. So it's a golden age for those types of shooters. You're bringing back the classics, you're making some new ones in those styles, and I am all about all of it. So very much love that. Realms Deep. What else? What else do we have for events? Game Accessibility Conference. Oh, yes. And then I think the major other one would be the Game Awards. I just did a video on that, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I do just want to give a quick little spiel. Again, disclaimer, I was invited for the second year this year to be a judge for the innovation and accessibility category. So I was honored to be invited as a panel of judges for that. They just did the Game Awards show. God, was it last week? Wow. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Hell, like I said, everything's a blur. I don't remember anymore. Nevertheless, it was very recently. It was an alright show. It was like 3 hours long. I think, like I said, I still think they could do things where, like, you're honoring the games and the developers themselves more. You could say, like, oh, you could, focus on an interesting aspect of this game, or an interesting aspect of this development process, or something. Like, I appreciate the trailers and world premieres, exclusives. Like, I know it's a marketing thing. I know you got to pay the bills somehow. And like I said, some of the announcements were great. Alan Wake 2, hell yeah. Space Marine 2, hell yeah. A lot of other things, great. But I kind of wish that they wouldn't gloss over some of the achievements and some of the awards, and I wish they could kind of highlight the industry and not treat it like it's games. You don't necessarily have to treat it like a Hollywood or your traditional TV award show, like your Oscars or something like that. You can you're gaming. You can do like I said, I know you have to get sponsors. I know you have to pay the bills. I get that. But I would like to see, a little bit more as far as the games themselves. Um, Forza Horizon 5 taking the accessibility category. Yes, I do have some issues when it comes to totally blind accessibility, but you can't deny it is an extremely solid game with a lot of different accessibility features to accommodate a lot of different players. I mean, including blind to some degree. Like, yes, you have to rely a lot on auto steering and stuff like that and assists, but the fact that you can at least have Game Pass and you can at least kind of participate in the game, and this is a ginormous, it's one game of the year from a lot of places this year. So to have that, that is a very cool thing. I'm very, like, I'm okay with that. So that was a really cool thing to see. I like that they paid a little bit more of extra attention to game accessibility. During that segment, they actually had a kind of a profile of somebody during that segment. So that was a good thing. But yeah, I mean, the Game Awards, I'm glad he came out and said something about all the bullshit that's going on right now with Activision Blizzard and just in the industry in general. He didn't call out them directly, but, there's other companies that are guilty of it. So, I mean, of course, ActiBliz is getting all the attention right now, but there's been plenty of reports, sadly, of other companies involved in crap like this. So, we'll get to that in the trends section of the video here, but I'm glad he at least tried to address it a little bit. I do hope that going forward next year, if some of these companies don't improve themselves, they shouldn't be invited to the show necessarily, or they shouldn't be invited to receive awards, or, like, I don't know, just something to really discourage us. Say, no, you're not eligible for this because you are, you're, I'm trying to think of the best way to word it, but, like, you're not doing the industry any favors. So you guys need to really knock it off. So, yeah, a lot of different game events and webinars and conferences and all kinds of stuff this year. So that's kind of a wrap on the events that we kind of looked at this year. I'm sure I probably missed one or two here or there. But now we get into the sort of trends, some of which we've talked about already. This leads right into the major one that's on everybody's mind right now: crunch culture, harassment, awful behavior, executives and CEOs and heads of companies not only letting things like this happen, but actually being a major part of it themselves. Bobby Kotick absolutely needs to get the hell out of there. At least that would be a good start. I know it's not just him. Like I said, we gotta. Everything comes from, the culture is from the top down. You have a lot of, like, grunts, for lack of a better word, like regular employees that just want to do their job, that just want to make great games, or, whatever industry you're in, helping people, teaching, sales, whatever it is you're doing. But in this case, they just want to, these companies, they want to make great games. They want to be compensated. They don't want to be treated like shit and be like, oh, well, now that we've kind of used you, we've made you work 18 hours a day for the past 6 months. Our game is out now, and so we're just going to lay you off now, while we still give our CEO $18 billion and a $15 million bonus. Fuck you. That stuff has got to stop. If you can afford to pay your execs that much, I mean, I understand you've made it far, you're blah blah blah. In management, they typically get paid more than your average worker. But I mean, there's making more than just being greedy at the expense of others. Like if you have to lay off 50% of your workforce just so your shareholders can make their profit, or so that your executives can keep their third yacht, no. This is absolute, that's just absolute nonsense. It's garbage. No. If you can, if you want to be able to afford all that, no. The people that are actually doing the work, treat your employees with some dignity and respect. It's kind of like how, we've talked a lot about people with disabilities. It's starting to actually become a thing. Like even for myself, I talked in the previous video about my consulting work. A lot of it I would just kind of do for free to get started, just to get my name out there and to help improve the situation however I could. But now, you know, companies are actually starting to realize, hey, you know what? Let's treat these. We're asking them to do real work, so we should compensate them for real. Whether it's money, whether it's gift cards, whether it's whatever. The point is, you're being compensated somehow. Um, and I'm glad that's another trend. That is a trend that I'm liking to see, in more companies, whether it's tech or gaming or just usability, accessibility, whatever it is. Um, a lot more businesses are actually starting to compensate people for their time and value their input. But like I said, this gaming stuff, um, just crapping all over your employees so your executives and your board members or shareholders can rake in obscene profits. That's not right. If I move halfway across the country for a job, I would kind of hope that I would have at least some job stability. Like if your company goes under because you're just not doing well and you've fallen on hard times, that's one thing. But like this whole cycle of oh, we're just going to pay you for the current game and then throw you out and then rehire for the next project, we're going to rehire all new staff. Like why would you do that? I don't know. There's a lot of messed up stuff lately, but all this Activision, Blizzard, Ubisoft. I can't even think of all the other companies that have been accused. Um, the funny thing in all this, as much as EA has been hated over the last several years, I mean, I'm sure stuff is going to come out about them too. It wouldn't surprise me, but honestly, like, it's really sad when like EA makes the top hated companies of the year for a few years, and like they're one of the good ones now. Like I haven't heard as much about them in the last 6-9 months, so that's weird. Like you always would hear something about EA. I mean, they're still doing, like, I don't like some of their trends either. Buying out a company and then they make their great games and then they buy the company, and then like Raven Software, I think, are they Activision or are they EA? I can't even remember. But we'll just use them for an example. Like, okay, Raven Software, man, they made so many cool games back in the day. They made like Heretic and Hexen and just tons of cool games. And now they got them doing, was it Call of Duty, I think. So like they can't do their own thing. They're just like, oh, we're just going to turn this into our yearly turnaround. We're going to make Call of Duty. We're going to make Battlefield. We're going to make, whatever. Same with like Monolith. Like No One Lives Forever, Fear, Shogo. I mean, they did so many cool games when they were doing their original thing. And again, now they're just turned out to make their yearly, to help work on their yearly cash cow. Which I guess if you really like Call of Duty or whatever, sure. But like I said, I miss some of these awesome studios being able to do what they did best. But like I said, these big companies will buy them and they either fold them into just working on their one thing that they want to run into the ground, or they just shutter them all together. That's happened a lot too. They just want the property, and then they don't, they just kill the developer, and then a lot of people are out jobs. I don't like that practice either. So, these are just some trends uh, in the tech and game industry that I really, really dislike. So, I wanted to mention those. Let me look and see what else we got. Hopefully, we get something a little more cheerful to wrap up here. Oh, yeah. Well, we got a couple other little things to go here. I've mentioned these in previous years, but it applies just as much as it does now. Um, Unfinished and broken games. I appreciate that we can get patches, we can get updates, we can get DLC. You get a game that you really like, you can get more content for it, you can, do all kinds of different things, whether it's single player, multiplayer, what have you. But so many games just launch day one in a really, really bad state. Whether it's a new game, a remaster, or whatever. I mean, look at the nonsense of the Grand Theft Auto Definitive Edition just recently. That was just a complete cluster. I mean, that was a shit show if I ever seen one. Um, they take some classic games and they start with mobile ports and they just butcher them. Bugs everywhere. I know they've patched them some to make them better, but no, you should not be allowed to release that. I mean, that was the one thing. When you had cartridges, yeah, there were still bad games, but like you actually had to kind of try to make a finished game, because if you did that too many times, if you did that where you buy a cartridge and the thing halfway the time just doesn't work, people aren't going to buy your future products. And I wish that would be more the way it is now, that people keep buying them. Um, but, I mean, Halo Infinite is a great game. I'm really glad they delayed it that extra year because, like I said, aside from the PC crashing issues, I've heard good things about the Xbox version. If they can fix the stability of Infinite, like, I will continue to play that game because it's really fun. The grappling hook is great. The combat is really fun. I love the chatter of them. We'll talk about it more later. But there's been just so many titles. Like I said, there's always a day one patch, and sometimes the patches are ginormous. And that's why I don't buy games physically anymore. Pretty much on any platform. The only ones you can almost kind of rely on is Nintendo. If I wanted to buy like Mario Odyssey or a Zelda game on a cartridge, yeah, they even have DLC for their games now, and even a few patches and fixes here and there, but largely the game that you get, like if I didn't connect my Switch to the internet at all and I just bought a cartridge, if I bought a first-party Nintendo game, I would have the reasonable expectation that at least the game that I bought on that cartridge would frickin' work. I mean, that's the thing, is you buy a disc for the Xbox or PS4 or PS5, well, that's nice because that doesn't have the day one patch. The game is like in a beta at best when you buy these games. So when the servers go down or they don't have that content online anymore, and you want to go back 20 years later and play this game that you fondly remember from your childhood or from whatever, well, unless you have it still preserved, you're out of luck because the games on these discs are often, I'm just going to call it, I'm going to call it broken. So there's no, there's no excuse for that. Like, at least, like, okay, yes, there'll be updates. Like, even back in the 90s, and like, you would go download patches, you would go download, or you would buy expansion packs for PC games. Like Fear had expansion packs, Half-Life had expansion packs. You could buy extra levels even of Doom. You had the 3 episodes, and then they had the Ultimate Doom and different things that you could add on. But like the game that you bought, and yes, they would release patches and fixes, but the game that you got on the disc was reasonably expected to frickin' work. That's really where I have a problem. And relating to that, microtransactions, games as a service, like, I'm thoroughly convinced, especially I think in a lot of the traditional or AAA environment nowadays, there's a lot of games, there's a lot of companies where I'm almost convinced that they are looking at some sort of monetization scheme first. And like, okay, well, we want to do this sort of monthly recurring thing, or we want to do a season of something every 2 months or 3 months. Or we want to have a free-to-play thing where they can sell new costumes and skins and weapon thingies and whatever. And then after all that, then they're like, okay, well, now that we've decided this is the type of thing that we would want to create, what kind of game should we make around it? Like, it almost seems like the game itself is secondary to the service, to the microtransactions, to all the modern bullshit that is in a lot of these games. I mean, look at what the Avengers did to Guardians of the Galaxy. Square, they take like, I wanted to play the story of the Avengers because I've heard fairly good things about that, but aside from some of the story stuff, like, it was loaded with like live servicey stuff, and that's the stuff that really people didn't want. And then, a year or so later, they released Guardians of the Galaxy, which I hope really does well, because it absolutely deserves it. But like, the Guardians of the Galaxy, I think, got hurt a lot because everyone who was reviewing it, everyone who played it, they had this baggage coming in from the Avengers, because they looked at the crapshoot that was that game, and they're like, well, okay, this is just going to be another cheap Marvel cash-in because Marvel's the hot ticket these days. And it really isn't. Like, the developers that they got to do Guardians of the Galaxy, they said, nope, this is a single-player action RPG, and that's exactly what it was. You could go start to finish. You could earn unlocks through finding collectibles in the game and through story missions, and the story was great. The dialogue and banter and everything was just the music was phenomenal. Just everything, like, I really enjoyed it, but I have a feeling that game is going to suffer, and I don't know how many people are going to actually support it. And then is Square going to let these companies make another game like that because they say, well, we tried this single player thing, but it didn't work. Let's go back to our microtransactions and our live services. But like I said, I think the Avengers game really could potentially hurt Guardians of the Galaxy, and I really want that game to do well, because even if they don't do something Marvel, that style of game, I mean, just with the production values and the gameplay overall, I thoroughly enjoyed what I played. So, that's where you have these kind of problems. So, these kind of pay to win and a lot of the stuff that came from Facebook and mobile, and I have to kind of partially at least give credit to, unfortunately, Bethesda. They started all this nonsense with horse armor. Um, but I just, I'm really tired of it. Really tired of it. Want to see, like, I want to buy a game and expect that, again, not only do I get a working game, but I get, like, a full game that I can play. Like, I can buy it, I can play it, I can enjoy it. I don't have timer based restrictions on when and how I can play it. I don't have to worry about, well, you've got this, but in a month you're going to have to pay another fee to get the true ending of the story or whatever. Now, if we want to add supplemental story again, like an expansion pack or something, it's a great game that does well, sure. Like, I was glad when they added an expansion pack to Fear. Um, or like Half-Life or something like that. I mean, any number of PC games had that back in the day. But I want to have like a complete game experience. I mean, is that really hard to ask for? Like, is that unreasonable? So those are some of the things that I really, like I said, the trends that are continuing. They're not just for 2021. They're happening. They're a thing. They've been a thing, and unfortunately, they're still being a thing. And the one other negative thing that I have to sort of talk about, well, negative depending on how you look at it, but I will say I am very, very tired of hearing three little letters. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Yes. NFTs. Ugh. I am so damn tired of hearing NFTs I could puke. A lot of what they're trying to do and the way they're trying to shovel it into games and just products, like, I get you kind of want to have something where you can digitally own something and then sell it, resell it to somebody. That needs to happen. But you don't need the blockchain. You don't need to do that. Like, Steam knows everything that I purchased. I could look at my entire history since 2003 if I wanted to. If they had a mechanism to say, like, okay, we get a cut of this if you buy a game for $50 and you're allowed to sell it for whatever and we get a cut out of it or whatever, they could easily track and say, okay, now your account does not own the license to this game anymore, and now it goes over to my friend Chris or something, or it goes to some rando that I sell to on the internet. You can do that within, like I said, they know what you own already. You don't need any stupid blockchain or cryptocurrency or bullshit for that. It's the new trend, and you want to look cool for investors, and you want to be in the latest thing, and that's the only reason that everyone is so fixated on these things now. Like, you don't need it. To do like what, I know Ubisoft said that they were doing something. I know there was this big hubbub with Stalker 2, which was really funny because I think they already backtracked on that. People just got super pissed about it, and they're like, okay, we're not going to do NFTs in our game anymore. I mean, it's really funny because, like, as divided as we are as a world, as a nation, I swear to God, other than the few real enthusiasts, your average person, even your average tech savvy person, like the unity that people have who just say, I don't give a shit about NFTs. This doesn't need to be a thing. It doesn't need to be shoehorned into everything, is pretty unanimous. Everything that seems to, where they're just shoehorning it into something, that's been a pretty universally hated, or it's been universally disapproved of. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, they talked about it a lot in one of the next trends that I'm going to talk about in like the gaming room that I joined. Um, but Clubhouse, that was remember Clubhouse? Yeah, that happened this year. Like that happened. I don't remember if it came out like early this year or late last year. I joined it fairly early on, but not even like probably within like a month after it joined. I was in like what, February or March, and I was really heavily into it for probably a good month or so, 2 months maybe. I mean, I like I said, um, this game dev room, they had it open for 24/7 for quite a while, and I met lots of great people in there. Like I met people that worked on games, that worked on movies, that did um, audiobook narration, just all kinds of really unique people. I got to hear all kinds of neat stories and chat with them. And we didn't always talk about gaming. We just screwed around and drank and chatted, and it was, it was just like kind of being at your happy hour. You're chatting with your buddies, your industry buddies at the bar, and who knows, we'd play little games, little like trivia or just little uh, fun little games in the room. It was a good time, and I really should pop back into there just to see. I don't think it's near as big or as active as it used to be, but for when I regularly joined it, it was fun. And then everyone, I think it was so popular because it was an invite only kind of a thing. So like people, you can't, if you tell someone they can't join something unless they get exclusively invited, of course it's going to be the hot item. Like you can't have this until you get special invite only permission. So people are going to want it, and then once everyone can get in, it's like, yeah, it's not cool anymore. But then you got Facebook and Twitter and everyone else doing it, and I don't know how those are doing. I haven't joined any of them. Actually, I did listen to a Twitter space one time just to see what it was like, and yeah, it is very, very Clubhouse-esque. It is audio, and it seemed to work okay. I used the Twitter app, and it seemed to work okay. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if that is going to be more of a regular thing or if that's going to peter out more as people go back into. That's the other thing that I think we were still a lot of in quarantine, and then we were still getting started the early vaccinations. And so I think, that really had a lot to deal with. People wanted to be social, people wanted to have human connection. And so Clubhouse fit the bill really nicely early this year. And, as the world maybe opens up, if we get through this next strain, I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen with all this? But I don't know. I think Clubhouse was kind of a neat thing. Like I was not interested in it right away. And then when I started working with blind abilities, somebody invited me into it. I'm like, okay, I'll look at it. I'll do a video on it. I'll do some accessibility stuff, whatever, I'll look and see how accessible it is, because I know other people are going to ask. And then I found this game dev room, this game dev happy hour room, and those were my people. I found my kin. I found my family, man. They, like I said, it was just a really fun, really neat room. I mean, there were people all over the world. This wasn't like a U.S. thing. Like there would be people from there was regularly people from Sweden or like just any number of places around the world, and it was really fascinating just hearing their perspectives on like what their lives were like, what how they lived. And like I said, it was really kind of neat. And lastly, the trend that I want to talk about, again, we're getting out of the negative, we're getting out of all the bad stuff and the NFTs and getting into the good stuff. Like I said, I had fun with Clubhouse. But again, I just, we already talked about it kind of with the Game Accessibility Conference and things, but just the amount of willingness and improved accessibility that we're seeing in technology, in games. Unfortunately, not in virtual reality just yet. Unfortunately, I mean, yes, we have groups dedicated to it, aka XR Access, but nothing commercially facing yet. But largely, like I said, the number of games covered at the conferences, the number of games that came out, again, maybe they weren't totally blind accessible, but at least they're starting to go that direction. Um, and more games are starting to at least have text to speech, and then hopefully next time they can figure out the in-world navigation and other assists or other tools that a blind player would need to actually navigate around the world that you're in. So we are getting there. We've had, colorblind has been a feature that has been in games forever. Subtitles have been in games forever. Like, granted, they don't all do them right or as well as they could, but at least they've been like, you almost don't like, it's rare that you find a game that doesn't have subtitles at all. Colorblind maybe isn't quite as common, but at least it's like, okay, that's more of a mainstream thingy, and a lot of people are colorblind, so they kind of put that in there. But now we're getting into stuff where like they're kind of trying to account for other abilities or other differences. People who have cognitive disabilities or who are blind or low vision, legally blind, hearing impaired, mobility impaired. I like looking through my Twitter feed and just discovering some little indie game that I'd never heard of. But one of the things that had caught on is like, oh, we're an indie game and we're adding this, that, and the other thing for accessibility. And you know what? Accessibility sells, just like purdy pictures or good sound design or whatever, good story. Accessibility sells because, hey, if I hear, oh, this has a large text option, or this has text to speech, or it has something that, like, I think I or my YouTube audience would like, oh, you know what, that's going to make me take a serious gander at this title, and we're going to look at it. So, yeah, it's been really nice to see so many things happening with game accessibility. I think that is going to wrap up our trends section, like just kind of the things I've kind of noticed over the past year or so. Let me take a quick peek at my notes. We might be wrapping this video up here shortly. Yeah, so we're going to wrap up the video. And the next couple videos are going to be talking more specifically about the games themselves. We talked tech, we talked accessibility, we talked events and updates and life in general. Now we're going to focus on some of the highlights that I thought of for 2021. So we're going to wrap it up here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys are enjoying the kind of year-end recap here. Follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, twitch.tv/illegally-cited, illegally-cited.com, and right here on YouTube. So until next time, I will chat with everyone in the next video.